Fine. My name is Katie Snap, and I want to give you a little bit of background on me that's hopefully not too boring. I'll make it real quick because it has application to what my most recent startup is, which is called Time to Fly. So let me just say this. I started off as an engineer. Many people look at me and they're like, really? I've actually had people come up to me in bars and say, you do not have an electrical engineering degree. I say, yes, I absolutely do. I kept a miniature version of my diploma in my purse for a while just to prove it. But after an initial career in engineering in the defense industry, I was recruited by a national organization, national consulting firm actually, back east that specialized in the quality movement. This is back in 19 blah, blah, blah. It was a long time ago, but it was early on in my career. It was a front row seat to the quality movement, which is now known more like Six Sigma or Lean. And so I had a stellar opportunity to be able to sit on the front row of watching that happen. And that is what evolved into, from engineering in my background, into a management consulting career. That business I have under the title of Better Leadership because it's betterleadership.com. And then somewhere along the line, I specialized in women in leadership, and that's a bit of a longer story that I won't share with you. But I realized that women are in more unique position with respect to leadership and searching for networking and support. And so my specialty area within my management consultant is online mostly, and it's called Skirt Strategies, which was named after my first book, Skirt Strategies. I've got 2 books now at this point. So that's important to know because as a management consultant, that's my overarching activity, and that's my role. Within that, you see me do it in person. I do a lot of work here in Albuquerque. I do a lot of work nationally, a little work globally, more locally than anything else in most recent years by choice. And then my online thing. And the online thing, how many of you are busy online with a business that's launched online? Okay, you know that networking is everything, marketing is everything, and it's a constant challenge. Which brings me to a description of what that looks like. In 2015, a couple years ago, the Business Outlook, as you might know, offers an infographic. This is a quick infographic of the Skirt Strategies piece of my online business and the number of people that it touches. You see my business partner there, Carol White, who is also affiliated with the New Mexico Restaurant Association. So she helps me out here and there with the blogs, and we've got a podcast and 2 books and blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on. Somewhere through this experience, it became obvious to me that the many followers that I had were looking for something, not just with respect to becoming a stronger woman and a more empowered woman, a more self-confident woman, a fearless woman. However you want to say it, women are great at reaching out to one another and creating the network in order to do that. But someone made an observation to me, you know, Katie, a lot of these women followers, and these were her words, and it's flattering, but she said, Katie, they want to be you. And I said, well, say more about that. And she said, well, look at what you're doing. You're a solopreneur. You're out there on your own. I don't share it with many people, but I have a super, super flexible schedule, and so probably 2 or 3 days a week during the middle of the day, I actually go play tennis. Don't tell my clients that because I always feel guilty, right? Another thing we women have is that guilt. So these women were looking for something else, and so I reached out to them about a year ago, and I started asking, well, how many of you are consultants, or how many of you want to be consultants? And I got a really amazing feedback, like within 24 hours to the 100 people, a subset of 100 that I tapped. So many of them came back very quickly that were like, yes, I'm interested in that. Yes, I want to translate my career into that. Or yes, I am doing that right now, and I want to be better at it. So I began looking at what sort of content I had for them. And as many as you know, when you have something that you're good at and you've been doing all your life, it's really easy to pass on as a mentor to others. So what I observed, not in just the experience that I had, which actually it took me a while to figure it out, is when you translate your career from one thing to another, you have to ask yourself, how well am I equipped in order to do that second thing? Am I doing it because it's exciting, because the product is fun, because there's a market for it? But is there more behind it? Am I really good at the nuts and the bolts of the whole picture that's required in order to be an entrepreneur or a solopreneur? By the way, I never use the word entrepreneur Carol was the one that kept beating it into my head. She's like, you are an entrepreneur. I'm like, no, I'm just alone in business for myself. No, you're an entrepreneur. Bang, bang, bang against my head. I'm like, yes, you're right, I am. And now I realize, through such support groups as this, 12-step support groups, I am a solopreneur. So probably what was the most interesting to me is that those of us that are in consulting positions, and by the way, if you're a life coach or a career coach or you have a coaching business, I consider that a consulting business as well. It's kind of a subset of consulting, although mine's just called management consulting. It includes coaching. We don't really have any specific training to be whatever we're consulting in or coaching in. And so when I got recruited to be a consultant by this fabulous consulting firm back east, who I've always been honored to be affiliated with, I really didn't do anything other than just say, okay, send me work, tell me what I need to do. Excuse me. Send me work, tell me what I need to do, and I would bill them. And I did nothing else besides that. And I figured out how to pay myself, and I figured out how to do my own marketing when I needed to, and I figured out how to do my taxes and the legal part, and I figured out how to network, but nobody really ever told me that there was this bigger picture. So I believe that there's a dilemma with many of us that are in business for ourselves as consultants, that we don't know, no one has taught us how to be a consultant. So we come up with problems such as our internal structure. It's usually thrown together. Mine was thrown together for years and years. It's usually propped up instead of designed and intentional. Your client flow, as an indicator of that, your client flow is somewhat erratic. I mean, it can be feast or famine. Some of that is just the nature of the business. Some of that is through lack of awareness. Many of us use a sales process in consulting and coaching that we base on a classic conventional wisdom of, well, how do you sell? You go tell someone what you can do, and you listen to what they need, and then you kind of just pitch it. You advocate, but that's not really what happens in consulting. In consulting, sales are made through repeats and referrals and deeply developed relationships, because it's a more professional transaction. It's really a transformation. It's not just a transaction. So it's a partnership, and the conventional sales process really does not work ideally for it. Women more specifically had other indicators of their consulting or their coaching business not working. For one thing, lack of self-confidence, and there's a lot of complexity behind this, but most women are different than most men, so I'm going to talk about women as kind of a generic gender. But we deal more with lack of self-confidence than men do, partially because we've been in male-based or male-influenced work environments. In the American industry, the American business environment is very much that way. It's male-based. May not be male-dominated where you are, but for many of us, probably more than half of us, we work in an area that's male influence and male-based. And so that triggers a sense of fear, self-doubt. Sometimes we feel like the underdog. And then we don't stand up for ourselves. So lack of self-confidence would happen. That would lead to women not charging what they're worth for their services. And then the potential client starts seeing it as perceived value. Well, if she's only charging $100 an hour, but this other guy over here is $200 an hour, she must not be worth it. So instead of us feeling like we're giving people a deal, it has the opposite effect. And then we also would deal with one-and-done clients, people that we would feel bad calling them back, or we'd like to have a long-time relationship with them, but we felt like we were bothering them instead of knowing that what we were offering was something of huge value and helpful to them, and a little bit of poking and nagging and being on their radar was exactly what they wanted. So that leads to clients that are kind of one and done rather than taking the leaning in and following up with it. So I created last year a course. It's a 16-week semester. It's all online with the exception of a support coaching phone call every other week. And it's called Time to Fly. I won't tell you the story behind the Time to Fly as the tagline, but it has a story behind it. So it's called Time to Fly, and it's a way for women to build a profitable consulting business, whether they've got one now or whether they're getting ready to transition and launching one, that they love, with reinforcement and support from women that are doing it, as well as support and advice from me. So that's what it's titled, and that's what it looks like. My next hurdle then which is what brings you here, or what brings me to you, is to get this in the hands of a distribution system. As you know, marketing can be, I'm not going to say marketing is everything, but marketing is a hell of a lot. You can have a really crappy product and terrific marketing network, and people buy it. Now, it might not sustain, but people will buy it. You can have a fabulous product and no effective networking system, and it just doesn't get out there. So I have what I believe is the second one. I have a product that's gone through beta testing. It went through one set of class last year with 6 attendees, and then we had 11 more attendees this January. So it's been through testing. It's been proven. Women that were in the class actually got more business from it. I've got testimonials. I've got data. I've got a fabulous product, but I'm not quite sure whether the way that it's being put in front of my potential distribution system is what's really going to resonate. And so that's really what I need you for. Ideally, I've got several existing networks that I've done some work with through Skirt Strategy, so I have their ear, and I believe I'm I would say somebody that they trust. So I would like to take this to them. Now, it is important to know that there's really 2 different areas of the distribution system. I'm also going to use an online, the good old Facebook advertising and get people, which is how I got the first beta testing group up and going. It cost me some money. It cost me more money than it made, which people here probably can understand. But it also proved the product, and I think that online Facebook advertising or click ads or whatever you want to use, I think it's valid and I think it works. It just takes a lot of upfront cash. The second area that I think is going to be perhaps more powerful but more relationship work is that those in-person network systems. And those look like, I've got some warm and hot leads there. I've got a connection into a National Women's Association with tens of thousands of members, a National Sorority, a women's network, and an incubator for entrepreneurs, and educational online networks from universities that happen to offer online certification courses. So all of these are potentials. And that's essentially where it sits. So I'd like to entertain questions from you as to where it might be going and any further info that you might be curious about. Okay? Yeah.
Could you say a little more about the course, like what you and different leads and what it costs and that type of thing?
Okay, so saying a little bit more about the course. The course is actually 8 lessons split up into every other week, and the content itself is what I felt was most germane for people, specifically women entrepreneurs in this case, women entrepreneurs that are not sure where to go with beefing up their clientele. So it looks like understanding the marketing piece, understanding I call it a portfolio. Portfolio is your services and your offerings as a consultant. So your marketing, your portfolio, and then your administration. And in running a business, and if any of you have ever read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, you know that you can't just have a great chocolate chip cookie recipe and open up a store down the street on Broadway. You really have to have a bigger picture. And so this encapsulates that. I also call it a 3-legged stool, those 3 pieces of a business that are critical. The portfolio, what you're offering, that's actually the technical piece. So in that role, you're the consultant. But the other 2 are mutually exclusive roles. They have nothing to do with how good you are as a consultant. And that's how you market, how you get out there and you make those connections, so those relationships are what you sell to as a consultant. And then the administration piece, which is you managing your company. You've got to be a manager. You've got to pay yourself. You've got to go pay taxes. You need to deal with graphic artists. You need to manage subcontractors or independent contractors like graphic artists or IT people. And that's a whole different role than being a coach or consultant. So hopefully that answers it. And in the course, we deal a lot with activities, working on your own stuff, writing what your compelling message is, kind of like an elevator speech, but it's delivered differently. What you're fearing, what you want to follow up on, how you create your own content, and how you follow through on it and support your clients with long-term relationships.